How's everybody doing?
All right. Well,
Mm.
no one else is here yet, so you're the first board member.
I know they're slow walking over there. My chips are targeting my mic.
please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
Okay, thank you for everyone who is attending and all of our viewers who are online. Hopefully you can all hear us through our masks. We're all promoting the governor's new ordinance and showing off our stylish masks so that we can defeat COVID-19. So let's go ahead and get started. The board roll call. Let the record show that all members are present and accounted for, with two of our board members being digital. That's Trustee Boyd and Trustee Deleuze. And moving on to item 3B, board action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session. So let's move on to adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
It's been moved in a second.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 4, communication. And this is where it's gonna really be tough for me because I don't have my mine have some internet issues for those of you at home, so I don't have all my cues, but basically, this is the moment where anyone who wants to give a public comment can do so. And we have a protocol for that. You can leave a comment within our YouTube window, and we will go ahead and read that. We cannot take action on anything in public comment that was not on our agenda, but we will definitely listen and ask for clarifying. So we'll give it a minute and see if there is anyone who would like to do a public comment. Yep. Okay, moving on to reports. And again, I have no, hold on a sec here. Here's the first report.
Robla Education Foundation.
Robla Education Foundation. Do we have them online? I'm guessing not. Okay.
If I could just maybe take a minute and say that I know Mr. Raven is gearing up for their annual fireworks sale and the fireworks booth that they always have in place at Bing's Supermarket. And I think recently he was still recruiting volunteers to work the booth. And of course, if you live in our area, we want to encourage anyone to buy their fireworks at that booth and support the Robla Education Foundation.
Okay. Yes, if anyone is feeling very generous, please volunteer at the fireworks booth, and you can contact John Raven, or you can contact probably any board member or superintendent, and we'll give you that information. Okay, CSEA. Do we have anyone signed up for a CSEA? No. RTA? Moving on to superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The school year in the Robla School District, odd as it was, ended on June 12th. That was the last day of distance learning in the Robla School District. We did our best to end things as normal as we could. All of our schools held sixth grade promotion ceremonies. They were drive-by ceremonies where families drove their sixth graders kind of through a gauntlet of cheering staff and administrators, received their certificate. There was, at all the schools, there was kind of a picture-taking station. So we kept everybody safe and healthy, but we also gave the sixth graders the recognition that they deserve. We also had at the end of the year teacher work days where teachers did come in. They socially isolated themselves, worked in their classrooms, and completed things like cume folders and report cards and packed their things up for the summer. And those ended actually on June 10th. And then following the end of school on June 15th and 16th, families returned the devices that they borrowed from us for distance learning, both Chromebooks and iPads, as well as the hotspots if they borrowed that for internet access. Currently, we are very feverishly working on our plans for reopening school. We conducted staff and parent surveys at the beginning of June, and those surveys provided us with some good information, not only about what parents and staff had to say about distance learning and its effectiveness and any suggestions for improvement, but also their thoughts around what schools should look like when they reopen. I have shared those results with the board and with staff, and those survey results are being used by the 8 committees that are working on our plans for reopening. Over 50 staff members, administrators, certificated and classified staff are all involved in working on those plans. It's over 50 people who are involved in the planning, and it's going very well. They're working very hard. They are using the guidance from the county of Sacramento as well as the state of California, and as I said before, the survey results to do their planning. This is a wonderful example of collaboration between administrators and staff. We will have a draft of the document ready in early July, and with that, we will then move forward to creating our MOU for these new procedures with our employee associations. It is our plan to recommend to the board tonight that we have a special board meeting on July 23rd, and at that meeting, we will hold a public hearing on our plan and ask for the board to approve our plan so that we can move forward with implementing our plan in order to allow for school to start on August 19th. From there, we will move to surveying our families about the options that are available to them. Those options would include distance learning, if they feel that they would like to keep their child at home. We do want to offer that option to our families. Or a hybrid model, which would be some days at school during the week and some days of distance learning during the week. The old option of having traditional school 5 days a week with everyone coming to school, at this point in our planning is not a viable option because it does not adhere to the guidelines put forth by the state or the county. So we, at this point, are not able to offer that as an option to our families. Once we have a sense of how many families want to come back and how many want to do distance learning, we will make any adjustments to our teachers, and then we will implement our plan. And that's where we will begin to implement all of the things that need to happen to keep schools safe, like plexiglass barriers, masks, hand sanitizer stations in all classrooms. We're talking about painting distancing lines on the playground so students know how to line up and where to play, getting new cleaning procedures in place and training with that, and new cleaning supplies, and signage needed to make sure everybody understands what the expectations are, and thermometers so that we can be taking temperatures. So there's a lot of work to do, and I do commend our staff for all the work that they're already putting in to get these things into place. You're going to have a budget report tonight, so I won't say much about that. We'll let Mr. Castillo do that a little bit later. But we are beginning to hear about some of the trailer bills that are going forth in terms of guidance to school districts around what school will look like in these times of COVID-19. We have recently found out that it appears that we will still have to conduct 180 school days, and that the instructional minute guidelines will remain the same. So a student in a particular grade will still need the required number of minutes, although that can be a combination of live teaching and distance learning and assignments. We're looking to get more details about the flexibility that will happen in our preschool program. Those are different funding sources. And we're looking, of course, for any other information about other waivers for the rules that we have for moving forward in terms of what's required in school. And then last but not least, I know I said this before and I was wrong, but I want to be clear that this truly is our last board meeting in this room. This building, I don't want to steal the thunder away from the facilities report, but this building will be torn down before very long here. So say your goodbyes tonight before we move to some temporary digs until our new boardroom is ready to go. We'll put it in storage until we're, I think we've determined it'll fit. Yeah. That's my report.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, one more time, you said that on our next board meeting, that will be mostly surrounding the opening plans, or in bringing the public?
Yeah, there'll be a few things, Mrs. Howard, that we'll need to cover at that meeting. I think there'll be some facilities needs, some approvals there. And we also think that we may have some agreements with our associations that we hope to bring forward at that time. But the main focus will be an opportunity to have the board approve. Of course, you'll have it way before that, to look at our document. But our plan would be to have the board recommend to the board that they approve on that night our plan for moving forward and our new guidelines and procedures.
And what part did you say? You said something about the parents, because they've already done the survey, and you've gotten some good information from there.
Yeah.
But what did you say there was something else?
Yeah, so Mrs. Howard, we feel like we want to actually ask parents to commit to what they would like to do in the new school year. Do you plan to bring your child back to school, or do you plan to have your child do distance learning and actually take account of how many students will be doing this and how many students will be doing this so that we can staff each program appropriately? We feel it's unfair to ask parents that question until we show them the procedures. They need to know what school is going to look like before they should have to commit to say, I feel that that is safe enough for my child. So our goal would be to have the document out for review with families ahead of time, and then once it's approved by the board, immediately go into contacting families and saying, okay, now that you know what it's going to look like, which plan are you going to go with?
When you send out those letters to families to let them, peruse the plan of things, what if we give back a lot of, comments that where families are having difficulties being able to do the plan, as it is, thought about right now, but whatever the final laydown is, what if there's a predominant number?
Well, we will rally all of our resources as we usually do. One of the things I know that families rely on is some after-school care with START. And actually, I have a meeting with START tomorrow where we will begin to talk about what START will look like in this new era. And it is my hope that maybe through START, we will be able to provide some of the child care that we know our families will need.
One more question. Is there any question and answer portion for them after they've seen whatever the district laid out? Is there like a question and answer for them, or is it the board? Can they do it at the board meeting, or will they have a time?
To give us feedback?
Yes.
Both. That we'll give them an opportunity ahead of time, because obviously if they give us something that we want to change on the document, we want to do that. But also, obviously, at the board meeting, if anybody were to bring our input there too, that's what the public hearing would be for.
I'll send my statements a little later on, but since we're having a great discussion, I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions. And I was looking at the materials that you gave us from to help you guys what you're developing, and the information from the state. And one of the things it talked about communications, and also had a great section about if a child comes in and shows symptoms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I didn't see, and I know this is from the state, so it's kind of hard to do that, but if a child does come down with symptoms or so while here, I know that it says it recommends to send them home. but does it all, I didn't see anything about recommending testing and stuff like that. And I thought that might be a great opportunity for us to keep some resources on hand to be able to send to people, like, okay, so this looks like your child did have symptoms. These are some of the things that you might want to do, and also be able to give them some of those local resources, like where a testing site might be and things like that. So is that part of, is that going to be part of the local?
Yes, there are very clear procedures that are already established with the county about the actions that we will need to take. And one of the most important actions, if we ever have a child or a staff member test positive, is to contact public health. And they will take into account what the specific situation may be. And they may recommend closing a classroom, they may recommend closing a school, depending on what the circumstances are. We have some very clear procedures about isolating the child or the staff member who has symptoms and determining where at school we can do that so that we can isolate them. And so it will be a really important thing to stay in contact with public health. And our district nurse, Judy Allen, is staying in constant contact with the Association of School Nurses and consulting them for their input as well. And so we know that all of those will be spelled out in our procedures. I will say that in Robla, we're very lucky because we also will have Hazel Health. And Hazel Health will just be another layer of medical people who can help us when these situations arise as well.
So will then the county be in contact with the parents of that student?
We'll do, in all likelihood, we will be, but my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this, and, I can get you the details, I just don't have them tonight, but there's a whole series of things that kick in. So the process now, it is my understanding that whenever someone tests positive, the county has an established process for tracing the contacts that person has had, and so they get in contact directly with the family when the test is positive, and then they begin to contact the people that are, that have been exposed. And if some of those people are at school, of course, then we communicate that. And of course, we were talking today about maybe having some pre-written letters that principals can send home if something were to happen at their school, so that they're letting, whether we're supposed to let the class know or the whole school know, whatever the case may be, we want to be sure that we have all of those communication procedures spelled out.
Okay.
You're welcome. No, I guess I would just commend really the people that we have in the school district. This is a monumental task, and I have to say how proud I am. I do try to pop into each of the committees as they're meeting and check in how their progress is going, and I continue just to be amazed at the amount of work everybody is putting in a very short amount of time, just completely reimagine our whole system so that we are really, really confident that we will be keeping children safe and employees safe, and that we can communicate that to our families so they feel completely confident that they can send their children to us and we're going to keep them healthy.
Okay, moving along to board member reports. We will start with Trustee DeLuce. Trustee DeLuce, can you hear us?
There we go, unmuting. So as I said earlier, the delegates for CSBA in the Region 6, we've been doing weekly calls and meetings and just kind of talking about what all of the districts are doing and just kind of really kind of touching bases and see where things are. And, most of the districts are still trying to figure out exactly what it is that they're going to do, how it is that they're going to offer education when things come back. So the thing that made me feel kind of relieved is pretty much everyone is exactly where we're at. One of the things that I liked, and I had a chance to review some of the surveys that were done in other districts, and I really liked the questions that were done in both the staff and the parent survey, because I really felt like they really dug deep into helping to understand not so much what their preferences were, but what their concerns were, or what they felt the benefits were of the various different models of education. When eventually we do return. I'll say that I'm also very happy with the direction that the that the budget is gone. I'm glad that, I mean, there are going to be several districts that are going to be in a challenge because one of the things that was negotiated as a part of getting the funding that was received was districts are not going to be allowed to consider layoffs as a part of balancing their budgets. Luckily, that's something that hopefully is hopefully it's not going to affect us. But I think that's a major issue, and I think it's something that each of us as board members need to make sure we reach out to our elected officials and let them know it's really unacceptable because ultimately we have a budget we have to balance. And when you consider the fact that most districts between 80 and 90% of their budgets are personnel, and then you're not allowed to even consider personnel as or consider layoffs as a part of balancing the budget. I just think that's just completely and utterly unrealistic. Unfortunately, it seems like the legislature had made up their mind that that was just the way things were going to go. But I don't know that the governor has decided that or not yet. Anyway, that's pretty much my report, and thank you guys for listening.
Trustee Boyd?
Yes. All I've got is I talked to the superintendent the other day, telling him that I was given considerable consideration to not running again. This is my term's up. But in the last couple of days, I've given a lot of thought, and I am going to stick it out one more time. This is it. I'm going to be 76. If I happen to be reelected, it's going to be 76, and this will be the last term. It's really mixed feelings. I don't ever want to leave this district. I like working in the district. I don't never leave the district. But things are changing now. Reading Partners has left this, which was my big into the district a lot. But one thing is I really want to see this construction go on too. And I don't want to bail out in this critical time. So I'm going to stick it out one more time. But in 4 years, you can start planning my retirement party then, if I'm around. That's it.
Okay. Trustee Howard?
Kind of on the same road as Dennis, because my term is also coming up, but I'm not going anywhere. It's not my intent if people will have me to be back. But also looking at the information that our district has put out with the parent and the staff surveys, I thought that was, a good way to get the information. And again, as Trustee DeLuce was saying, I was reading through the questions, and they're, just very clear, and also they bring across the strong message that the district is doing everything possible to make sure that families can feel like their children were thought of first and foremost, and their safety and health. So I thought it was, just very well worded and also gave a good amount of information as well. So that just brings a lot of confidence in the work of the staff. And like Ruben said, it is a huge undertaking. That's an understatement, even so, but just everybody coming together and, working through this is just really, really, the only way I can say is comforting, because you want people, at this time, you just want to make sure that the biggest institution that touches families and kids are, just really have the children foremost in mind and doing everything possible. So that's all I have to say.
Trustee Perdón?
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have much to say. Much what I wanted to say has already been said. I'm not the kind to repeat something that's already been said, but I do want to say that repeat something that has been echoed, and that is how much work has gone into this process, all the committees, everything since it started, and how much appreciation I have for the staff, for the parents, for everyone, because this is not something that we planned for. This is not something that we had a playbook for or anything. And we got walked by this, and it's just amazing how people have come together and really put forth their best foot, and really thought about our kids and their families and how to give the best service. So I just want to say how much I appreciate everything that everyone is doing. And so I'm glad that's echoed by all the members of the board because it really does show how much. So, that being said, we will move on to our next item, our presentations. That's section 5. 5A is the Robla LCAP operations update. Mrs. Lyon.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So normally this time of year, we would be talking about the local control accountability plan. But with COVID, there's been some changes. Executive Order N5620 has suspended some of the accountability. But I have to say right now, my report's already old. Trailer Bill AB 77 makes some changes to some of the things that were in Executive Order in 5620. So excuse me if I'm a little bit off because, like I said, some of the information has already changed from my understanding. But essentially, what this is that under Executive Order N5620, we do not have an LCAP. It suspends the LCAP. Initially, it was suspending the LCAP until December, but the trailer bill has changed that, and I'll briefly talk about that because it just was signed last night or just passed last night. But instead of a local control accountability plan, what districts have been asked to do is to establish what's called an operations update. And the operations update is a reporting requirement that gives us an overview, gives stakeholders an overview of the changes to the programs that the LAA is offering in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. So the update, and that's what you have there in your packet, but the major impacts, the things it needs to cover are the major impacts on students and families and how the LAA is meeting the needs of unduplicated students during this unprecedented time. The reporting being made in the operations written report includes steps such as the delivery of high quality distance learning opportunities, how we provide school meals in a non-congregated setting, and arranging for supervisions of students during ordinary school hours. So these are all items that Superintendent Reyes has been keeping you up to date on, and then they are now outlined in this operations update. So as I said, this was making a change to some of the requirements under the local control accountability plan. It was pushing some deadlines out, but from my understanding, trailer bill 8077, we actually won't have an annual update next year for the LCAP, and we won't have a one-year LCAP, which was initially what was planned. What we're going to have is a whole nother document called a learning continuity and attendance plan, which if you think about the acronym, it's LCAP, just like LCAP, which I'm sure is planned. But when you work in this world of acronyms, it's a little confusing. So I'm sure in July I'll have more information for you on that, but that's a plan that we will have to complete by September 30th, 2020. So tonight, what the requirement is that an LEA provides an operations update. The operations update is approved by the board prior to the approval of the budget. So the operations update is replacing that LCAP plan before the approval of the budget. Are there any questions about that?
Does it make your job a little easier?
It's making my job a lot harder.
That's what I was afraid you're going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep up with all these changes, and it almost doesn't pay to be ahead of the game. You kind of, because the changes just happen so quickly.
I don't know how you do it, but thanks.
So I just, Cindy, I just wanted to point out then, just in terms of how we're proceeding tonight, the documents Ms. Lyon is referring to is up for approval later on the agenda. It's G under number 7, action items, and the document itself there, of course, is there for the board. But as Mrs. Lyon described, it's nothing like our usual 100-page LCAP document. It's really a simple narrative around those areas that she described, so that we're talking about what's happening currently under the circumstances.
Thank you, Superintendent Reyes. Yes, so essentially, we're bringing this action item in place of the LCAP.
Thank you.
You're
One, two, item 5B, our public hearing for the 2020-2021 budget by our PDO, Mr. Gerardo Castillo.
Good evening, President Barnes, Superintendent Reyes, and members of the board. Tonight we will be presenting the 2021 adopted budget, keeping in mind our vision statement that every student reaches their potential in a growth-minded environment, reaching challenging practice, and reflected learning for all. More than ever in everything we do during these difficult times, we have to keep this vision statement in the front of everything we do.
I apologize, but I can barely hear.
I will repeat that. Should I restart?
Yeah, we moved the microphone, Mr. DeLuce. Let's see if that's better. Let us know.
Okay.
So I will start from the beginning again.
Much better.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
a lot better, yeah.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Good evening, President Barnes, Superintendent Reyes, and members of the board. We're presenting tonight a 2021 adopted budget, keeping in mind our vision statement that is every student reaches their potential in a growth-minded environment, reaching challenging practice and reflected learning for all. More than ever, we need to keep this vision statement up front in everything we do during these challenging times. Up front, we want to acknowledge that a lot of information we have received during this week. There is an agreement reached between the governor and the legislative leaders. So now we know that the local control funding formula will be funding at the same level as 2019-20. So a lot of the assumptions that we used to develop the budget changed already. So we know now at this point in time that we will get back to you. We will be back in the middle of August under the 45-day. So we will ask you to approve the budget tonight, but we will come back in 45 days to ask you to reapprove it one more time. Okay, so we will have to do this work all over. Okay, so what will be covered tonight is this is 170 pages document, and this is the items that we will discuss tonight, especially the assumptions. We will look at the history, our average daily attendance and enrollment, and of course we will discuss the general fund in a lot of detail because the majority of revenues and expenditures are on the general fund. We will touch on reductions that we already accomplished in the budget. We will give you an update on negotiations. We will discuss the other funds, what we hope to accomplish with the allocations allocated towards schools. We will have to touch the multi-year projections and our opportunities and challenge. So our budget assumptions. So this already changed, but this includes 7.29 reduction and assumes an ADA of 19,665. The unduplicated counts that is the number of free and reduced in English learners is about 91%.
That's based on previous, right? That's not based on the numbers that we've just been given, right?
So this right here, what was the? So that's on the previous, yes. So the assumptions in the budget document, it is on the previous. This document, it was already sent to the county. It was sent to the county on Monday morning, and it was already, so we could not change it. So that's what I mentioned at the beginning, that our budget, our numbers are based on the previous, and we're coming back again in August. And I will touch base in some areas that they will change that I think it important, so you know how the FLAG funding changes our budget.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So one of our other assumptions is the lottery funding that is assumed the same as 1920. Lottery funding is very volatile because it depends on the number of tickets sold. So I'm surprised that it's the same as 1920, but that's what the experts are saying, so we might have to revise it down the road. Again, this is the majority of the assumptions in the budget are based on the May revise, and one of those are with the deferrals are 3 months. Now the deferrals are 5 months under the new deal, and so the one-time federal funds are included in their adopted budget. So let's look at our history of average daily attendance or our enrollment. If we look at 3 years, we could see that we have 1 year of positive increase in enrollment followed by 2 years of decrease in enrollment. Or 3 of the last 5 years, we have received, we decline in enrollment. So we are assuming for 2021 that our enrollment will be the same as 1920. So our general fund or revenues, the majority of funds, 88%, we depend on the state. That is between the local control funding formula and the other state revenue, both of them make out of 88%. We depend greatly on the state. We also have here federal revenues that includes our Title I, Title II, Title III, and includes about $500,000 as one time due to the COVID-19 that we will receive. So that was, this was as a percentage. This graph is our actual numbers. So we have 2 years in a row that we have a decline in revenues from the adopted budget from 18-19 at this point in time. So, however, now we know that the local control funding formula, this $20.5 million will be the same as this year, 21.3 at this point in time. So that was about our revenues. Now our expenditures. The majority of our expenditures for our district, 86% of our unrestricted general funds are for salaries and benefits. We are about average compared to other districts. Our total budget is 82%. We have certificated salaries that includes anybody who has a teaching credential, includes teachers, principals. We have classified salaries. They include all the custodians, all the admin office, and our benefits. So the majority of our expenditures are salaries and benefits. The supplies, it's actually used to be like about 4%. Due to all the items that we had to accomplish with COVID-19, that increased about 1.5 compared to previous years. So this is on percentage. This is our numbers. So we are increasing our expenditures for about 2.4% compared to the previous year. So we have increasing expenditures. We have increasing expenditures, and we have decrease in revenues. Therefore, we need to make some adjustments in our budget. These are adjustments that don't require that we bargain. These are adjustments that are included in the budget. Some of these are contract reductions. One of these, a big one right here, is our HASO contract. We still will not provide the services. However, it will be about 1/3 of the cost due to the relationships that the superintendent has with HASO. So we still provide the services at lower cost. We will have a lot less travel and conference. We will have less field trips, and we will do some adjustments in our categorical program. So we have some reductions in the budget, about $575,000. Since the majority of our expenditures are salary and benefits, we have met with our bargaining units, RTA and CSCA, about 3 times in average, I will say about 7 to 8 hours with them. We want to thank them for participating in the meeting with us, and we have working very collaborative. We have tried to practice the interest-bearing bargaining unit, so I'm very grateful. We have reached actually an agreement with CSEA. We have an agreement with them, and we're making a lot of progress with RTA. We have not reached an agreement with them. Of course, now everything changes. As we say that, there's a rule that you cannot, I could not agree with more with, it's very difficult to adjust the budget when you cannot adjust where the majority of the expenditures are in salary and benefits. But we are working with them. Besides reducing expenditures, we are working really active to apply for grants. So we want to expect to get about $250,000 more this year than before. We will not include those in our budget until we receive those items. So besides the general fund, there's other funds that our district has. One big item right here, this is our ending balance that we will expect for 1920, and what changes that will happen in 2021. The building fund is the largest in here due for the major constructions that we are doing in our district. So that's what it is. I also want to touch here that the deferred maintenance this is the last year that we will have that. We were just using the beginning balance, and in 1920, we will be finished with that fund. So in the child development, we also expect about the same enrollment as we have for 1920. There's a lot of changes from the state level, how we're going to provide the services for preschools under COVID-19. We are very fortunate that we have other local grants. We had the first 5, and also we expect some funds from the James B. McClatchy Foundation that they have been very contribute to the work that we do for long time. So the Fund 13, the cafeteria, nutrition services. This is a fund where when we close our schools, we actually have provide more meals than before. And that's due because the law allows us to serve students, anybody who is younger than 18. And when we go out there, we have served a lot more than we have. So we don't expect to see we expect a decrease, when the schools are open. But we still want to provide the same services that we are doing this year. We are working at committee how we're going to do that yet. We're still working on it, but we still expect to provide the same breakfast, lunch, and our supper program. So our Fund 21, these are the projects that we're working that you are aware. We are working, they are starting to tear down the buildings, as you can see that about the building A. So we're making some major progress in these items in the building fund. The developer fees, it appears the construction continue even under the COVID-19. So the funding has been constant, and we expect the same for 2021. Besides these funds, the funds that we're allocating to the schools, we want to maintain and reach programs that the Robla is known for. We think this is even under COVID-19, these programs are continuing. So we will continue to do RP and technology and our immersion program. So as a part of our budget, we are required to just not do our following year, but 2 years down the road. So we are doing 2021 plus 2 years. This line right here is prior to knowing that funding was the same as 1920. So our budget was going to change about $2 million in fund balance. Now it's changing about $250,000. So this is when I will come back in August. There's going to be a lot of changes, but you just expect a number close to this. So this is, it's good news from that perspective. So that's where our multi-year projections are. So our challenges and our opportunities, we are very grateful that the state take education very seriously, and they can provide us the same funding as 1920. But we need to ask ourselves, how did the state fund the same level? So what they did is they defer payments. They just postpone. It's not like they find new money. So what does this mean to us? Is that means that we're going to have bigger cuts down the road. They're going to be more difficult to do. So we had to plan for it. If the economy rebounds, that is great. But it just keeps constant like we are right now, it will be very difficult. So we had to think long term, not just 2021, but at least 2 years down the road. We're very grateful that with the board, superintendent, and our bargaining units, that we are collaborating. We had to keep, as I start the presentation, things keep changing daily. I would say daily, weekly, so we have to stay up to date, and we are monitoring that very closely. Enrollment for us is a big issue. We are assuming the same enrollment as 1920, and the state give us a waiver. No matter what will happen with our enrollment, we will get funded based on the previous year ADA. But that's just it's a one year. So that's at this point in time, we're asking the board to, in a later item, to approve our budget as presented, knowing that we're going to come back in August with the changes that we talked in the first slide. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
I just have a suggestion and a question. When you do this, can we get those added to the agenda?
I think they are, right?
Okay, because I'm looking and it says just the PDF and the whole document comes up, but I can't find it.
I checked it earlier. I think it was in there.
Y'all see the slide presentation on there?
But we will make sure that we do that.
Okay, well, maybe I'm just.
It's 2 documents. I think one is.
You opened up that item, 5B, and then under supporting document.
You said 5? Okay, well, I'll find it, only because it was a slide that I wanted to go back to, so I wanted to.
Which slide is that?
Where did you click before that? 'Cause I don't have it.
Which one you want?
You're saying everything in touch screen?
No,
It's
this one
okay.
is computer. I didn't bring the other one.
Well, while you're trying to find that, is it okay if I ask a question?
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, trustee DeMuth.
You would think that, well, I won't even say, I won't go there. Anyway, so my question is that I know that we're not going to be funding the deferred maintenance. We're not eliminating that fund. We're just not choosing to fund that particular fund right now, correct?
Yeah, so the deferred maintenance, actually, when the tier programs, when we went into local control funding formula, it went away. So we are doing that under the Fund 1. It's ongoing maintenance and operations. So yeah, so of course we are doing deferred maintenance. So that fund, we don't receive funding for that fund anymore, and we cannot receive funding for since the local control funding formula. That's like several years now. So we have been operating based on the beginning balance that we have. So maybe after a period of 7 years, we have used that all. So that's what. So in your when you look in the details in the report, you will see what was in 1920, but you will not see any new additions in 2021. So we are doing those programs and maintaining as they are part of the general fund now.
Okay.
So it was on slide 20, where I had the multi-year projections.
Yes.
And
And I
at the
think
bottom, the green, well,
yeah, and here looks purple, but in yours is green. Yes.
yeah, okay. Those are what you had projected with what we were told prior to, right, the 10% reduction and everything like that, right?
Yes.
And then,
Correct.
The very bottom, the purple, that's the new information that Ms. Lyons was also referring to, right? With the, what was it, AB 77?
Yeah, that is the extra money we're gonna get.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we are just to reiterate, because they're planning to defer, those funds that they say, that are the same as in 1920 year, because they're planning to defer, then in 2021, what is there is now, instead of what was in the green or orange, we're now expected to be less impacted in the bottom, is correct?
Yes. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And then that deferment, while we're waiting, on the state to do what they say they're going to do, which is to give us still pay the funds in later months, that is where we use our reserves and, through the choices that we've made, we've had some strong reserves and to carry us through.
Yes. So what we forwarded you, remember our last meeting, I think it was in May, I think I mentioned that we will have 3 months deferral. Now it's 5 months. So that's how the state. So that means the state is still not going to pay us. Okay, we're not going to receive the cash, but they say we owe it to you. So you kind of figure out how you deal with it. So we still have to pay. We cannot say, of course, to our employees or no, we're not gonna pay. So we will use, in needed, we're allowed to use other funding sources for cash purposes so we could pay our bills. Other funding sources could be our fund balance that we have in the cash, but if we run out of that, it could be we could borrow from our building fund, our bond fund. That's our plan. And if this continues, we might have to go out in the market to get a loan. That's under, it's called tax revenue anticipation of, that is usually a loan for 1 year. I don't think we don't need to do that. We think we could do at least 2 years during this, but if this continues, we have to be prepared for it.
When you said borrow from our funds, that bond account, that means we do have to give that back.
Yes, yes, and thank you for asking that. So yes, we just borrow the cash, and once we get the cash, we have to put it back, and it has to be within the same within the 1 year period. So that's the rule. When you borrow from other funds, you have to. The Ed Code allows under dry period finance. We could do that. Another source that we have is we could also borrow money from the county. But I don't think the county is going to have enough for all the districts. So that's another source that we have. Yeah.
How far can we go before we start borrowing like that?
Say that again.
How far can we go before we start borrowing?
How far? I think we would estimate about our period for 2 years. So we are one thing we're spending is a lot on facilities. We actually have this conversation with the superintendent. We are doing a lot of facilities, a lot of construction, so we are spending a lot of money there. But we think we will be able to do for 2 years, as it is right now, as it is right now.
How far will our cash on hand go before we have to consider other funds?
How far?
Before we get into borrowing and get into a bond, things like that, how far will our cash go?
I think we would.
Couple years, a couple years should be okay, right?
Yes.
Yes, because we're talking about the deferment.
Right.
Yeah, but I want to say it's 2 years. If as it is presented now. You know, the,
Everything is okay, right?
yeah,
With-
yeah. You know what is,
Right,
yes.
right. Go from here.
Yeah. Any other questions? No. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So, with this being a public hearing, we will, okay, so, we will open this, public hearing for the budget, I'll call it open. Is there a motion?
Oh, yes, the move to open the public hearing.
Well, we need a motion to close it, it's open.
Or the motion.
Let's give it a minute or so.
Yeah, let's wait till somebody.
Yeah, we have a delay.
I found it, Sharon, I was under the wrong section.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, second. The hearing is closed. Okay, moving along to our next report, the facilities subcommittee with Superintendent Reyes and Mayor Flores.
Give me a haircut. Still needing an appointment.
I was actually going to give it over to Jordan, but you know, it's as you guys can tell, the hair is starting to get a little long, so I will have to go buy myself a county barbers.
Barber's hurting. Just reopened.
So, Jordan, are you on here as well?
I am, yes, I'm here. Good evening.
So this evening we'll give you a facilities update of where we are. Jordan's going to walk us through just a quick presentation of the progress we've made since our last report.
Absolutely. Adam, do you have that report up? Do I need to share my screen?
I do not know.
Okay, not a problem. I will share my screen. Great. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. One second. So just wanted to briefly go over the district's implementation plan and how it relates to stay-at-home ordinances and COVID-19 as a whole. At this point in time, there have been no changes to the California building codes due to COVID-19. And because of that, there have been no changes to either the design efforts or the upcoming construction activities. Really, the main minor change that I can think of is that our construction meetings for Robla Elementary will be conducted via Zoom as opposed to being in trailer on site. But really, every other aspect of the design or the implementation and construction will not be impacted at this time. We continue to remain in constant communication with various agencies at the state level, CDE, ESA, OPSC, to try to monitor any potential changes upcoming. At this point, we do not know of any, but if there are any changes either on the design side or how construction needs to be executed, that is something that we will certainly work with the district and with the other parties to make sure that we are compliant with those. But at this time, the construction schedules and design schedules remain unimpacted. So I know that the board is quite familiar with this page. This is, again, just looking at the design efforts of each of the school sites. We throughout the school year, we've seen that the yellow arrows have been moving slightly to the right as we're making progress for each project.
Jordan,
Yeah.
we're on the wrong, the screen didn't advance to that page yet.
We're still on the first page.
Oh, got it. Must be a bit of a delay.
It may be showing the, I don't know if you have two screens, Jordan, but it may be showing on one screen and not on the other. There we go.
Hey, got it.
I
See
thought
that?
I was just behind the times.
Let's bring that back up.
Sometimes if you're in full screen, it might be slower, Jordan, if you might want to get out of full screen if you're in it.
Sure.
It says he's refused to update.
We got you. We're there.
I have it up here as well. This could work. Let's.
We're at the arrows page.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So again, throughout the year, we've seen that those yellow arrows for each school, schools moving to the right as we make progress through design. So as a quick recap, over at Robla Elementary, we're doing a near reconstruction of that school. We did submit the final design to DSA in February, and we received DSA approval over there, and we are now about to begin construction. Over at Bell Avenue, again, we do have two separate projects over there. One that's the new construction project of 10 classrooms, and then another that's the modernization of existing classrooms as well as the kindergarten construction. Both of those projects have been submitted to DSA, and other design efforts are still underway while we monitor DSA review. And then over at Glenwood, design has been finalized and is being submitted to DSA as a final drawing set next week. So essentially, since the board approved the plan back in April of 2019, all phase 1 projects have been designed and submitted to DSA at this point. As a recap, phase 1 was all of the improvements at Robla as well as Bell, and then new construction improvements over at Glenwood. And what we've done is we've submitted all of the improvements pursuant to the plan at Glenwood at once. So we're also submitting some of the phase 2 design efforts for Glenwood at the same time. So we're now we can turn our attention to the construction of these projects as well as design efforts for phase 2 and additional improvements district-wide. So just looking at some recent milestones since our last update with you. Again, back in late May, we did receive approval from DSA for the reconstruction project over at Robla. And then at the last board meeting about 3 weeks ago, you did approve of the guaranteed maximum price or GMP contract with Clark Sullivan for that project. We have conducted 2 construction meetings now, again, not in a trailer due to COVID-19. But the construction efforts are underway over there.
And Jordan, the slide's lagging again, so you just might want to go on the non-full screen version and just click over.
Sure, let me switch over here.
Thank you.
Certainly. So again, we do have approval of the GMP. We do have DSA approval. We're now focused on finalizing our approval from CDE for the project. There are some minor design alterations that CDE is recommending, mostly in regards to the pedestrian crossings with the parking lot. Once those design changes have been made, we do anticipate receiving CDE approval for the project fairly shortly. Going over to Bell Avenue, again, both projects have been submitted to DSA, new construction mid-May, and the kindergarten and modernization project in early June. And we continue monitoring DSA review of both of those projects. Since submitting to DSA, our design meetings have now switched to what we call constructability review meetings. So we're meeting with the contractors, the architects for both projects, going over cost estimates and trying to figure out value engineering or cost savings that can be conducted for both of those projects. And then also currently underway is the bidding process for the subcontractors for both projects. So last week, the district held a site visit for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors who are interested in pursuing this project. So that way we can have those subcontractors underway once we have DSA approval. And then lastly, over at Glenwood, about a month ago, the board did approve the final drawing design set for Glenwood. Since that time, we've been working with the architect on finalizing the drawing set that will be submitted to DSA on June 30th, so next Tuesday. And then again, we will be done with the design work for all phase 1 projects pursuant to the plan.
Jordan, if you go to the last page, I can take the last one.
Absolutely.
We are looking to start major scale demolition of the building that the board is currently situated in on July 13th. The district has taken steps to remove materials from that building. I know a lot of the historical records have been moved over this week. Adam and his team are working on transitioning over the major IT functionalities that are housed in that building. Once that is completed and the switchovers are done, we will be able to begin major demolition of that building. We will have an initial phase of demolition, which will include making sure that we are taking proper steps for any abatement. Given the age of that facility, there may be materials present on that site that need special handling, and as such, especially during demolition. So that'll be the first phase of demolition, followed by the actual bulldozers and other fun things. So we'll keep the superintendent apprised of those dates and times. We're also coordinating around, in terms of utility switchovers and so forth, we're trying to schedule around the meal service program. Our understanding is the district will be providing meals through July. And as such, we want to make sure we do not have any disruptions to the ability to prepare food for your students. Bell Avenue, really, we're just engaged with DSA going forward. We're going to start putting together the GMP for both those projects. Just as a reminder, the construction of the new classroom wing will proceed first, and then it will be followed, once that is completed, it will be followed by the modernization of the existing buildings also on that campus. Glenwood, just as a reminder to folks as well, we have designed both the phase 1 and phase 2 improvements over there. The nice thing about the kindergarten portion of the project is we can put that building on the site without disrupting, or with minor disruptions to the overall campus. And so we'll continue to coordinate with the district and our partners on the timing of that. Once that's complete, that will enable us also to begin the modernization efforts at a date to be determined. As we move into the final phases of phase 1, we are looking forward to phase 2, which is the design of some of the additional projects that are remaining. We've spoken briefly previously about potentially replacing the cafeteria function over at Bell Avenue with a new building, along with a central kitchen. Given hopefully the COVID-19 pandemic is shorter than we all hope, or as short as possible. But I think one of the things that we're having discussions prior to COVID-19 was the idea of centralizing the food services and housing that potentially over at Bell Avenue. Other projects include going back and looking at the library at Main Avenue, as well as the NPR and restroom improvements over at Taylor. In order to facilitate the next series of projects, we will be initiating, and the board will be considering this evening, the issuance of Measure K bonds. I know that the CBO had just shown a nice fund balance over there in our construction fund. As we move through this process, as we start letting out contracts for the Bell Avenue project and for Glenwood, we will be encumbering a portion of those funds as we go forward. And in order to proceed with our next phase of projects, it will necessitate another sale of bonds from our Measure K, our 2014 Measure K authorization. So that's kind of what we're working on. That's what we're processing at this time. And if there's any questions the board may have, we're more than happy to answer them.
Amelia, I just want to make a clarification. You said a portion of the next stages will mean that we'll have to offer another sale of bonds. What was the portion that would require that again?
So it's our phase 2 projects. So phase 2 is we identified three initial projects. It was the modernization of Glenwood, which we've completed the design for, but we need to provide funding for. It's the NPR, a new NPR at Taylor, as well as the restroom improvements. As you may recall, we did not modernize the restrooms when we did the modernization project previously, as well as the library over at Main Avenue. That's something that's been sitting on the books for a long time. The next sale of bonds will not enable us to do all those projects immediately. As you may recall, phase 2 is dependent on getting some of our reimbursements back from our past projects. That's it, and those applications sit with the state. We're looking to get back, the first tranche of money we should get back fairly soon is the reimbursement for the kindergartens classrooms to be built at Robla Elementary. Upon CD approval, we'd be submitting for the construction funds that are owed to us. It's about $900,000 of grant money that we applied for through the state's kindergarten facilities program. And we were lucky enough to get that before the governor got rid of that program. And then in addition to that, we've applied for new construction reimbursement grants for the improvements we did on that the district did in the initial classroom building and administration at Main Avenue, as well as subsequent application for the building that we had built, the 2-story classroom building, and the modernization at Taylor previously. So there's about another $6 or $7 million in reimbursements that we're anticipating from the state in combination with that bond sale to fund those projects that I just listed.
And
I think, did you say Bell Avenue too?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm Bell Avenue.
Okay, so just so the board understand. It's
Glenwood,
implementation at Glenwood, the planning is done, but the implementation at Glenwood, the multipurpose room at Taylor, the cafeteria at Bell, and the library at Main.
at Taylor, it's the multipurpose room and bathrooms.
And bathrooms and some administration as well.
Okay, and so we waiting for reimbursements and coupled with the sale of the bonds. So then what the governor is doing now doesn't affect those reimbursements, or?
No, so we were fortunate enough that we got our applications in towards the tail end of Prop 51, which is the existing state bond program. As you may recall, in March, there was another statewide bond program, Prop 13, unfortunately for its name, which failed. And that would have provided additional grant monies that we could have gone and chased. But fortunately for us, our big applications are at the tail end of Prop 51. And as such, we are seeking funds that have already been approved by voters, and we're in the queue for those funds. If there is a statewide bond measure in 2022 or 2024, the good news is that the district has up to 5 years to apply for reimbursement for completed projects. So if we do have additional eligibility or applications stemming from those other projects I mentioned, then we will be able to apply and seek those reimbursements. The reason why we have prioritized the projects thus far to focus on classrooms is obviously to provide 21st century learning environments to all students, but secondarily because those are the projects that are also available or eligible for state reimbursement. So for instance, the likelihood of us getting reimbursed for building an NPR or a cafeteria, what's considered maybe not necessarily non-essential type of facilities, at least from a classroom standpoint. So what we did in the phasing of this, and you may recall this from the plan, is that we prioritized to make sure that we get all the classrooms first, so that we guarantee the classrooms will get done, but secondarily, that we get the reimbursements for them and then be able to have the additional funds to go do these other projects.
But so because we got it in time, then it won't be impacted by what is
Oh,
currently happening.
yes, I apologize. It was a long-winded answer. I did not directly respond to it. No, it will not be impacted by the governor's current budget. So luckily for us, both on the local geo bonds, but also the statewide geo bonds, both those are voter approved and protected. Those authorizations exist. What may affect us is the overall timing of the sale of bonds at the state level. Under Jerry Brown, or Governor Brown, he was very deliberate about how he issued those bonds in small denominations. Assuming that we're going to have a financial downturn stemming from the current situation, there is a push by the governor to sell those additional bonds to stem or to create additional public works opportunities. But overall, no, the governor's current actions beyond the timing of the sale of bonds will not affect the availability of those funds.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You need to unshare your screen. Here you go.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Special Services FPL report with Sandy Graham, Director of Special Education.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm gonna share my screen here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
All right. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this here. Okay. All righty. So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Tonight, I'll be presenting an update on special services that are provided to Robla students through the Special Education Department, our mental health team, Nurse Judy, and our work in social emotional learning, or what we call SEL, and PBIS. Our Special Education Department consists of staff members with specialty degrees and credentials. All 6 of our speech language pathologists maintain continuing specialized professional development in order to provide services to students with a variety of communication disorders. Each of our elementary school sites has a full-time resource specialist working with students who have learning disabilities. Our 6 special day class teachers have advanced training in working with students exhibiting significant learning challenges as well as behavioral challenges. Our 4 school psychologists work to assess students who have a variety of learning disabilities, as well as working on the district's mental health team, supporting, providing support at each school site. Our program specialist assists with the wide range of coordinated activities to help support the 300 students with disabilities that are in the Robla School District. For some of our students with specific, very specialized challenges, we contract with non-public agencies to provide the appropriate interventions students may need. This would include occupational therapy, physical therapy, the need for vision and audiological and orthopedic specialists. We also can contract with a board-certified behavior analyst who helps us design intensive behavioral plans when our mental health specialists are no longer able to support a student with such needs. The photo on the right is of a student who has a severe visual motor planning deficit. This is not just a simple handwriting issue that can be remedied with some handwriting practice. This is a processing deficit that requires a specialist to hone in on an intervention plan that it would allow a child's success that, if not otherwise remediated, could have profound lifelong ramifications. Special education is monitored each year through state and federal compliance reviews. On the left side of the screen, you can see that last year we participated in a performance indicator review, or what we call a PIR. Lag data from the year before indicated that we needed to improve our suspension rates and achievement scores in English language arts and math for students with disabilities. We wrote an intervention plan for these 2 areas that included increasing attendance rates, training, and use of research-based curriculum, and a focus on reducing suspension rates. We saw improvements in both target areas, as the review cycle for this year shows on the right side of the screen that we were able to reduce our suspension rates. We met our goal, and no longer are we in the needs improvement status for suspension rates. We continue, though, to need improvements in the achievement rates of students with disabilities, and we'll write up a plan to address this upcoming year. This table shows the progress made when looking at the number of points below standard on CASP testing from a 3-year comparison for English language arts and math for our students with disabilities. The first table shows that in 2017, students with disabilities scored 131 points below the standard in English language arts. We have made steady progress, and last year, 2019, we were able to make an overall gain of 30 points. The same pattern emerged in math, starting out at 138 points below the standard in math and ending up with a 32-point gain in 2019. So we are moving in the right direction. Our mental health department consists of 3 social workers and 4 school psychologists. Our newest social worker is Evelina Rivas, and she's pictured front and center there. Our mental health professionals provide various types of counseling services, ranging from intensive educationally related mental health services, or what we call ERMS services, and also social skills groups. They also provide suicide prevention staff trainings and student risk assessments. They monitor our BARC app, which is an app that proactively monitors students' emails for potentially unsafe social media activity. And this year we put on 3 staff social emotional learning trainings and helped to develop our CSEA student mentor program. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Our social workers provide outreach and resources for our families in crisis and utilize the McKinney-Vento grant to help support our students who are homeless, our students and families who are homeless. I want to talk a little bit about our SEL and resilience training this past year. Our district professional learning in August and December focused on compassion fatigue and the importance of self-care strategies. The ideas are similar to the analogy of the parent putting on the oxygen mask in an airplane before donning an oxygen mask for their child. Because if you pass out before getting that mask on yourself, you will not be able to help your child. The same is true for our school staff. If we show up to work as our best possible selves, we can effect true positive work with our students. Our March training centered on research behind being able to understand ourselves and the correlation of making it possible to more profoundly care and empathize with others. We were able to train every staff member in the district. We trained our maintenance workers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, our teaching staff, and even our superintendent. I wanted to mention the CSEA student mentorship program. Our mental health team was instrumental in developing this plan for the classified staff. The plan is designed to support students who need a positive role model, to support positive social emotional skills and resilience. We were able to train almost 30 CSEA mentor volunteers for the program. And although we weren't able to implement the plan with student mentorships this year, we are looking forward to finding a way to do this in the upcoming year. A little bit about our multi-tiered system of support. This is our framework and process for providing every student with the support they need. This was our 3rd year of implementation and a year of continued refinement of the process. We provided staff with a fall refresher course and continued our implementation of what we call basis meetings. These meetings are designed to support site intervention teams with consultation from our behavior experts. PBIS is our proactive approach to promote positive behavior at each of our school sites. We are in our 5th year of implementation and continue to maintain the skills and procedures we have developed over the past 5 years. This year, principals, directors, and our superintendent began discussions around alternatives to suspension. We began a deep dive into defining the issues around suspensions and exploring our own perspectives, our own tolerance levels, our own relationships, and communication around suspension. We will definitely want to continue this work in the following year, next year. Also this year, we were able to train approximately 50 staff members in crisis prevention through the Crisis Prevention Institute. This training is critical in helping staff to be able to alleviate stress and anxiety, to actively use de-escalation techniques in crisis moments. Here's some information about our nurses' work with vision, hearing, and dental screenings throughout the district. And as you can see here, Nurse Judy's screenings are in the thousands. She's working very hard, as you can see. And almost 60 specialized healthcare plans were developed for our students with specialized health needs. Lastly, just a note on school closures and special services. The special education department responded quickly to revamp our system in order to serve our students in a distance learning model. Our special education staff adapted lessons and instruction to accommodate our population of students most susceptible of falling through the cracks. Our mental health team responded as well to the mental health needs of families and students, developing a whole section of mental wellness resources and videos on our district website, as well as direct online teletherapy services. Our mental health team developed a student find process designed to reach out to those families who were not participating in distance learning. A referral could be made, and a team, including a social worker, would then make a home visit to check on the family. Sometimes this would result in a successful nudge to get that family and child participating, and other times it would tell us that a family was in crisis and needed resources. This upcoming year is going to be interesting, and the special services team will be here ready to do what we always do. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one here. I'm really pleased to hear how prepared you are, especially in special education. You answered a lot of my questions, especially in that last piece there. But have we had any families reaching out on their own to you or anybody in your department for mental welfare?
Well, we have. I mean, you know, everything that's going on is very stressful to families. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. You all know that. But you know, our social workers and our school psychologists, they're just on it. And we have had some of our social workers make some referrals out to families to get family counseling to, you know, private agencies. So we have done that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to hear that. And, you know, I had another one, but it was not the 2 slides back to jog on my memory. One more. Oh, yeah, the healthcare plans. You go back one, forward one. Are you recommending or guiding people into healthcare plans? Is that what that is?
Well, these are actually special plans for students that maybe require some kind of you know, special kind of treatment, or if a student has a seizure disorder, it tells the teacher what to do if the student has a seizure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll try to get out of here here.
Okay, next we have a federal funding update with Cindy Lyon.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay with, I'm just sharing my PowerPoint and not my face? I feel like I get a better reception if I keep my video off as much as possible. Is that okay?
Sure. That's fine.
All right, thank you. Okay, so, oops. We've got the, apologize, I think we've got the wrong one up here. Give me 1 second. Well, you know what, there's just some extra slides in this one, so instead of taking the time to try to reboot everything up, I'm just gonna skip over some of the slides that you didn't need. The reason that there's the two PowerPoints that are very similar is that this information that I'm bringing to you about the federal funding is information that first goes to our DLAC and our ELACs to share with parents about what we do with the federal funds that we receive. And they approve the application for funding prior to me bringing it to the board for approval. That being said, okay. I'm going to skip. I said I'm going to skip a few of these things. We talked about the operations update. That was something I also share with our committees. We share it with our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee as well as our District English Language Learner Advisory Committee. We had a meeting on June 4th, which we held as a Zoom meeting, and we presented it very exact same format as we present the board meetings so that we could get parent input and share with them the progress and the things that we are doing with our students. Okay, so federal programs. So just a quick overview of what our federal funding that we receive from the federal government to support academic growth for students living in poverty and for English learners. We receive the funds on a per pupil basis. And the majority of, some of the funds must go out to the school sites where those pupils reside. We run a school-wide program throughout our district because our students that are living in poverty numbers are above 40% at all of our school sites. Our numbers sit more like in the high 80s to even up to 96%. I believe at Glenwood last year was set at about 96%. So these funds have a very specific purpose for them. So in this report, what I'm going to do is just share with you the 4 title funds that we are eligible to apply for, and then what we've been doing with those funds. Also, I'm going to share with you some numbers in terms of what type of funding we receive. The numbers I'm sharing with you are the numbers from this school year. So along with all the changes and everything else that is happening, with the delay of state taxes being pushed to July 15th, and with some of the federal taxes as well. We don't exactly know our funding yet. So what we've been told is to just operate on our 1920 funds. As I said, these funds are for supplementing our current programs, what we call the base program. We supplement. We cannot use these funds to provide anything that we consider part of our base program. So the largest fund we receive is Title I. It's based on the National Poverty Census and our free and reduced lunch count. Projections going forward is that apparently the census is showing that our numbers are going down throughout the state of California, but we don't think that we're going to see that in our funding until about 2023. So at this point, we're going with about our $713,000 that receive in Title I funds. When we receive those funds, there are some mandates on that we set some of those funds aside for specific populations. For example, you see here homeless services. So we do set funds aside for homeless services. We also are required to set some of the money aside for any of the students that live in the Robla School District but are attending a nonprofit school. So if they're attending, for example, we have 2 children over at St. Philomene's, which resides in San Juan. We are required to provide Title I funding and services for those students. And because the number of students that we have in our district that are out there in these nonprofit schools, we're part of a MOU with about 7 other surrounding districts, which you've seen at the board. So we work together as a team to try to identify where these kids are and meet all the requirements for that. So with the accountability plan, there's a push that we're aligning these funds with that plan and use them in conjunction with the supplemental concentrations funds that we receive that also address the same population. As I said, much of the funding in this category goes out to the school sites. We try to push as much out as possible to the school sites. However, because of the way that we're school-wide programs and the way that our numbers fall, we use quite a bit of this funding, as you'll see, for some personnel. And we're trying to ensure that we have adequate personnel across the district. So for example, we may have an instructional assistant is partly funded through Title I, and Robla School receives a smaller number of funding because they have the smallest number of students that qualify under Title I. And yet that's one of our more veteran instructional assistants. So some of the services we do what's called out of centralized service to ensure that we can provide the same type of service across the district. These funds are to be used for evidence-based educational practices. And the school sites do need to account for the funds that they received in their school level plans, their single plan for student. We also need to analyze the effectiveness of how the funds are used every year before we move forward and still use the funds in the same way. So some of the ways that the district has been using the funds, whether it be through the district or through the school sites, is some after-school tutoring programs, enrichment after school, some professional development. For example, Bell Avenue has utilized quite a bit of their site funds to get all of their teachers GLAD trained. It helps us to fund our homeless bilingual liaison, which is Maggie Gomez. She's 40% funded through Title I. We use the funds to support the parent involvement activities that we have going on, as well as to add some additional parent involvement activities. Our enrichment teachers are multi-funded through Title I and General Ed Fund. And then our professional learning support teachers, we have some of them funded in this way to keep that program going. And then, as I mentioned, the intervention assistants are half funded through Title I. Title II funding is the Improving Teacher Quality Fund. And this fund is for professional development. The way Robla uses this fund is all of these funds go to help support having a director of curriculum and assessment as part of our Robla team. She too is multi-funded. Title III funds are funds that we receive for our English learners, and it's based on our English learner enrollment. We receive two types of Title III funds. The first is for English learner supports and developing the English language. And the second, smaller pocket funds, is funds that we receive for immigrants that we have within the district. So we've been slowly seeing an increase in the number of immigrants in the district. In order to receive the immigrant funds, there's a formula that is used that looks at what your current immigrant enrollment is, and then is that enrollment going up? And so each year, we're not really sure whether we will qualify for the funds or not, because it depends on not only if we still have the immigrants, but if that number also increased from the prior 2 years. I do believe that we are still sitting at a point that I'm planning that we will receive the immigrant funding. Some of the ways that we use these Title III funds are, one of the things that we do for our parents and families is extend the library hours an additional 3 hours a week so that parents can come in either before school or after school to utilize the library to check out books. And then we have our bilingual assistants, our community outreach assistants, work with students in the libraries, and they're there for parents to ask questions if they have questions regarding their homework and whatnot. This is a very popular program in which we've had to kind of modify a little bit, because in some cases, our core bilingual community outreach assistants end up a little overwhelmed with the number of families and kids and different grade levels and parents that need help. But it's great because that's showing us that it's a service we're providing that they need. Title III also helps to fund an additional intervention assistant for our dual language immersion program, so that we have a bilingual intervention assistant that specifically aids students in that program. It also funds 20% of an administrator to help build and grow that program, to release and give the principal there, Mr. Gutierrez, some more time to spend on developing that program and working with the teachers. He holds I think they're almost monthly, professional learning communities with those teachers, beyond, above and beyond the other PLCs that he holds with his teachers at Glenwood School, as well as looking at developing and looking at the curriculum, looking at, how are we assessing Spanish language development, things like that. So that's what that administrator does. It helps alleviate him from some of his duties so that he can spend some time in the classroom in that DLI program. We purchase supplemental materials for our English learners, mainly for our newcomers, for example. With the online learning, we've got a couple of programs going, Rosetta Stone, Duolingo. We're always trying multiple because we're finding that one program works for one child and then we find it just doesn't seem as accessible for the next. And then we have about 20 languages in the district. So we're always looking for programs that will support multiple languages. There are a lot out there that support Spanish, but we need programs that support multiple languages. We'll use the funds for professional development, parent outreach. The Latino Family Literacy Project is a program that we've tried over the years. We didn't have as much success with it at the beginning of the school year this year. Had planned on trying to have a program. It's an 11-week program. We were going to have that again in the spring, but we all know what happened in the spring. And then we also work with a consultant that helps us also in the process of building that dual language immersion program. The last fund is a newer fund. It's called Title IV. This is actually our probably most flexible fund in terms of, though it does have some accountability in ways that some guidelines, as you can see, in terms of you have to split it between 3 pots. The activities that are in those pots are a little bit more diverse. So it's, as I said, it's a newer fund. We've had it for the last 2 years and we're anticipating that we will receive the funds again next year. This fund was particularly helpful for us during this COVID because we were able to use a good portion to help fund some of the technology purchases that we really needed to get in there. It also has been really helpful in us building our wellness program for the students with the wellness field trips, nutrition field trips, or each grade level has an activity, a field trip that is specific to that grade level that builds on the curriculum at that grade level and builds up. And we use this fund to fund those field trips. We've also used some of the funds for A Touch of Understanding, a program that is out there. It's been out there for a number of years. They come in, it's people that have some form of disability. It could be a physical, a mental disability, but they come and they share their experience with 5th grade students, and they have activities that 5th grade students actually get to see what it feels like, for example, to have to live their life in a wheelchair, per se, or to find out what it's like to be dyslexic. It's a really nice program. We've been running it over at Taylor Street School for the last 3 years, trying to work on some of the issues and things that have been happening at Taylor Street School. SAMI Circuit is new to us, and it was very well received. I see Mr. Boyd giving me a thumbs up there. Yes, it was very well received. He does a program that combines parent involvement, physical education, and social emotional learning, and really just a positive attitude and telling kids to think positively, be positive about themselves, and to have that attitude of growth, that the growth mindset. I can do it. I think his saying is, "We got this," or "I got this." We like to continue with him. He has a 3-year kind of cycle that he will do with school districts, and so now he's somebody that we're looking to continue to work with this year. He's also modified his program quite quickly to deal with the COVID situation, and has a whole new program that he's put together that is actually all provided online, still has a parent component to it, still has all the same components to it, and he's just really a phenomenal guy. He's doing a lot of really good work for kids. We use some of those funds for some of our online technology. For example, Lexia is a very popular program with our teachers, and we've been able to utilize this Title IV funds to help keep that program live for us, because it is not a one of the more expensive, I guess you'd say, of the programs, but very, very well liked by many of the teachers in the lower grades. And then we also try to support and supplement where we can with Sandy Graham and her special ed department there with some of the social emotional learning PBIS activities, things like that. So if there's any questions regarding the 4 funds that we are able to apply for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you will see at the on the action item, a consent agenda, that there is an item asking for your approval to apply for the consolidated application of federal funding, and that's what this is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving along to the wording of UCC quarterly report. Okay. Moving along to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So was there a comment? I thought I heard something. Okay, moving along to item 7, action items. First up is the Glenwood Elementary School SBFA 2020-2021 pledge. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Any comments? Or? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, item 7B, English Learner Master Plan revisions. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Any discussion?
Mrs. Lyon, do you want to say anything more about this?
Sure, I'll just give a little background. So the last time the board has seen the English Learner Master Plan was in 2012. There's been multiple revisions to the plan. And one of the reasons I would normally bring this to you about every 4 years, but some of the changes that have happened over the last few years kind of pushed out my being able to develop the plan and bring it up to date, as well as with the development of our dual language immersion plan. So some of the changes that have happened since you've last seen the revision of this plan are that there was the passage of Proposition 58, which opened the door for bilingual education options for students and families in California. The adoption of board resolutions supporting the initiative of bilingualism and biliteracy, the updates to the state English language proficiency standards, and then in 2017, the adoption to the State Board of Education of a historically new policy for English learners called the California English Learner Roadmap. This new policy offers a vision and direction for English learner education. It respects the value of an English learner's primary language and culture, recognizes the need to provide English learner students with a rich and challenging curriculum, and views the education of English learner as a system-wide responsibility. This is quite a policy shift from prior years where being a second language learner was considered a deficit. It's now seen as an asset in the state of California, so it's some really good positive changes. So the changes to the plan, they reflect those changes that have come about.
Cindy, quick question. So you said that you bring this to us usually about every 4 years, but you've not had a chance to do that. Repeat that statement you made about it being pushed out.
Yes. Yes. So normally I would be doing revisions about every 4 years, similar to what we used to do with the LEA plan or the local educational plan. These are 2 plans that were prior to the local control accountability plan. And There's been so many changes that have been happening with English Learner Services. And basically, I write the plan based on the federal program monitoring instrument. And pretty much as I was making changes, new changes keep happening. And so it's just taken me a while, because as I'm making these changes, they're also reflecting, the things that we're bringing to our ELACs and our DLACs. For example, the development of the dual language program. In 2012, when the new English language development standards came out, in 2013, it started changing the program instrument. So as each of these pieces of legislation has come out, it's changed the program instrument, which has required me to change something in the plan. So I think I'm caught up now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7C, resolution approving CDE contract CSCP-0411 to provide child development services and authorizing designated personnel to sign contract documents in the 2020-2021 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7D. Also, item is authorized, rescinding the layoff notices issued and 4.0 to 4 point, sorry, the 4 FTE paid sick probationary certificate personnel as issued on May 14th, 2020. It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion?
Yes, we're pleased to bring this forth, as the board is aware, in our concerns about the budget back in May. We took action to notice some of our employees in case their services are not needed, because we were well aware that the budget situation was going to change. Bringing back the 4 people that we are mentioning here is something that we are confident can happen with the current budget situation. And of course, takes a great deal of anxiety off of these 4 people who are concerned about their job in the upcoming school year. So we're glad to do that, and I'm excited to say that it appears that we'll be able to do more of this commercializing as well.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion unanimously and happily. Let's see. Item 7E.
Yep.
Okay. Consolidated application for federal funding. Recommendation is that superintendent, or recommend board approve the consolidated application and reporting system card 2018-19 application for funding. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And
Second.
Any
This is the one Mrs. Lyon was just referring to.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7F, resolution authorizing transfer of funds. And the district board of trustees transfer the resolution authorizing the transfer of expenditures between funds during the closing of the book process. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved to second. Any discussion?
This is something we need to do annually to close the books. Do you want to say anything else, Mr. Castillo?
Yes, this is as part of that closing the books, we, in the budget, we might have funds between different resources. So it's more than ever, this is something we need to do. We need your approval in order to do that.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7G, Robla School District LCAP operations update.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7H, adoption of the 2020-2021 district budget.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. Any other discussion? Sorry. All those, lost my train of thought. All those in favor,
Say aye.
say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Yes, 7I, 2020-2021 Education Protection Act spending plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Castillo, you want to say a few words about this as well?
Please. Yeah.
The spending, the Educational Protection Act spending.
Yes, of course. So this plan is also something we need to do every year. It pretty much says that we have to spend these funds only for instructional related services.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear.
Microphone. Just speak with it, yeah.
My apologies.
Too loud. Sorry. Thank you. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so these funds is, it says that we have to spend these funds only for instructional related services. So we are spending all of these funds only for teachers, and we cannot use these funds for administration. We have to make this public. We have to ask for board approval, and we have to post that this is when the Proposition 30 passed, and since then we have to do this every year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7J, agreement for consulting services with Wallace Cool and Associates to provide special inspections and material testing services to the Robla School reconstruction project.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Moving along to item 7K, agreement for consulting services with Optima Inspections Incorporated to provide BSA inspection services for the Robla Elementary School reconstruction project.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 7L, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the Robla School District General Obligation Bond elections of 2014, Series 2020C, and an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $6 million, and approving certain other matters relating to said bond. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So Mr. Flores mentioned this in his facilities.
Mhm.
Do you want to say anything else, Emilio?
Certainly. So, as I mentioned previously, just generally speaking about the current bond environment we find ourselves in today, is that, as you know, there's been a lot of volatility in the stock market. There's been a lot of concerns, if you will, about the overall economic condition of the nation. As odd as it sounds, that's the best time to sell bonds. One of the reasons why we started looking at the ability to sell bonds is that we have seen growth in the tax base over the last few years. The tax rate that the 2014 bonds are to maintain is to be below $30 per 100,000. They're currently sitting at about $24. What we're proposing to do is to sell these bonds and bring the tax rate back up to that $30 approved by voters. and utilizing an all current interest bond structure. At this time, if we wanted to max it all out, we could issue up to about $9 million in bonds, but that would require the use of capital appreciation bonds, which we've tried to avoid where possible in the past. So overall, we think it's a good market to go out there and sell bonds. We are fortunate that as we move into the phase 2 design and construction of projects, that we are going to benefit from some of the lowest interest rates, I think, ever. Of course, I think I've said that a couple times previously, not thinking that interest rates would go any lower than they have, but somehow the economy has proven me wrong at every single turn in terms of hitting the bottom. But overall, like I said before, we feel it's an advantageous time to do it. This is from the 2014 authorization, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll have to do a roll call vote on this, so we'll start with Trustee DeLuce,
Aye.
Trustee Boyd.
Lost him.
I think we lost Trustee Boyd. Huh? Okay, well, move on, okay. Trustee Howard, Trustee Cardona.
Aye.
For the record, I vote aye. So we did lose Trustee Boyd, but motion carries 4-0, 4 to 0. Sorry.
Thank you.
To unknown. Yeah, here.
Yes?
One asking.
Okay, well, we'll give a few seconds so we can be on the record.
Yes, we were rushing, but-
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost connection. I had to come back in. I'm here now, right?
Okay, so Trustee Boyd, we're doing
I
a
completely
roll call.
froze up. I had to get out and come back in.
Okay, so Trustee Boyd, we're doing a roll call vote, and we need your vote on item 7L. How do you?
Aye.
All right, so motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to 7M, special board meeting on July 23rd, 2020. Is there a motion?
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion, any other discussion?
We've just talked about this. I think the main piece would be around the plan for reopening. And, so that's why it's here.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7N, approve California School Board Association membership and gamut subscription services for 2020, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7O, addendum. Sacramento County SELPA, that's SELPA, local plan governance section. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, the Robla School District participates in the Sacramento County Office of Education SELPA, the special education local plan area. And by being part of that SELPA, we obviously strengthen our program by collaborating with the other districts in our area. There are certain rules that we have to follow, and we have certain governance in terms of how the SELPA works. And we must just adopt this with the board to make sure we approve how that governance works. I represent Robla at this SELPA, and meet with the other superintendents of the county office staff to monitor this work throughout the school year every year.
Any other discussion, items or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7C, addendum to approve the employment of Ms. Vanessa Jerome as principal of Taylor Street School effective July 1, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second.
We are very excited to have this come before the board. We are a very, very intense selection process. We're very pleased. We've had a very large number of applicants for the principal opening at Cherry Street School. And we are very pleased to recommend Ms. Gerard, who has a great deal of very relevant experience. And not only do we think she will be a great addition to the staff there at Cherry Street, but I think she will also be a great addition to our leadership team.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And she really would say congratulations, but that's understandable that she's not. So for the record, congratulations. We're very happy to welcome you aboard. Item 7Q, addendum to approve the administrative agreement for the 2019-2020 school year for the corresponding salary schedule.
So,
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Move in second.
so both Q and R are on the same subject matter. We were able to offer a one-time 1% payment to all of our other employees. So it seems very appropriate to offer the same for the 1920 school year to our leaders. So Q is the administrative group for certificated, and then R is the classified managers. So that then all employees in the district receive equitable compensation for this school year that they're on.
Any other discussion?
Does that include yourself, Superintendent Reyes?
It does not include myself.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7R, we didn't quite get through the alphabet, but pretty close. 7R, the addendum to approve the classified management, the classified supervisor's confidential agreement for the 2019-2020 school year and the corresponding salary schedule.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Good. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, that's the last action item. We'll move on to board member requests for future agenda items and reports. And we'll start with the far right of the screen. That's Trustee Boyd.
Nothing here.
Okay, Trustee DeLuce.
It's the first time I think Trustee Boyd has been on the far right.
Good one.
You know, the only thing is, so I've been monitoring I've been monitoring this both on Zoom and on the meeting, both on Zoom and on YouTube. And I have to say, the production quality, at least from the picture quality and everything on YouTube has been phenomenal. The only thing I hope we can try and address going into the future is there's a lot of unequal sound. If we can try and find a way to address that, because it's very important, I think, that folks have an opportunity to hear what it is that we're saying. It's not as much of a deal it doesn't sound like it's as much of a deal for those of us who are remote in terms of our sound, but sound from those speaking in the board meetings is sometimes great, sometimes not so much. So I really would like to see that addressed.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Trustee Howard. Trustee Cardona.
Nope, nothing here.
And I don't have any other requests, so before I say thank you to all those who are viewing from home, and with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Enjoy.